I'm Lenny Magill, and this is the AR-15, my favorite rifle. Joining me in this program is Jim Clark, a champion competition shooter and master gunsmith, currently the president of Clark Custom Guns. He'll demonstrate complete disassembly and reassembly of the AR-15, as well as advanced shooting tips and techniques. Plus, you'll see his personal custom AR-15 he used to win many different shooting competitions. And I'll take you through the basics, how to load and unload safely. Shooting basics including grip, 4 different shooting positions, trigger pull, and sight picture. Plus, I'll show you how to use the AR-15 for self-defense and short to medium range shooting, both fast and accurate. Finally, I'll demonstrate complete cleaning and maintenance procedures that will enable you to get the best performance from your rifle. By the end of this program, you will be well on your way to mastering the AR-15. The AR-15 is being manufactured by several companies worldwide, but they all share several characteristics. Let's begin with the nomenclature segment of this program. The full-sized AR-15 is 39 inches in overall length and weighs 7.5 pounds unloaded. The Sporter Match H-Bar version weighs 7.9 pounds due to the heavier barrel. The lightweight version weighs 6.7 pounds because of its shorter barrel, which is just 16 inches. Standard barrel length is 20 inches. All shoot the .223 caliber, or 5.56 millimeter round. Most newer AR-15s feature fully adjustable and quick-flip range-changing rear sights. The large aperture is used for ranges of 0 to 200 meters, while the small aperture is designed for ranges of 200 to 800 meters. The front sight is limited to a post that is adjustable for elevation only. All right, one of the first things we're going to do here is show you how to safely load and unload the AR-15 rifle, and I've got it standing here, and one of the first things I always like to do is to visually inspect that my chamber is in fact empty, and it is so. Let the charging handle go and pull the trigger in a safe direction. Now that I know that I have a fully empty gun, unloaded gun, I'm going to lay it down. We're going to talk about the magazine somewhat. Obviously, there are many different configurations of magazine. This is a 30-round magazine. The standard magazines now are 5 and 10 rounds. But this is the 30. We're going to talk about this and how it works. First, just to look at the magazine itself, you can see that it is curved somewhat to accommodate the 30 rounds. It's curved. The curve goes forward, so that means this is the front side of the magazine. When I insert it into the rifle, this is the front side. One good way to look at that is to look inside here. You'll see that there is, in fact, a plastic insert that replicates a bullet. The small or pointy side of that insert is the actual front of the magazine. Another way to determine the front or back of the magazine is they'll all have a spine. This is the spine goes on the back, and this, as you can see, is a ridge that actually will go up into the rifle, and this is a guiding ridge or spine. And one other way too is you'll see that there's a small notch that's cut out here inside the magazine, and that notch actually will lock the magazine into place, as well as the small notch on this side. So that's my magazine. I want to take the standard ammunition, military ball ammunition. It's the 5.56 cartridge or the .223 cartridge. And you'll see how to load is basically fairly simple. Just place your first round right here on top of the plastic off to the side, and with 2 fingers push straight down, just like so. And I'll do another round right here like this, 2 fingers down. And I'll just keep on loading up a couple here, and won't do too many, just so we can save a little bit of time. But you'll see the process. You just go on and on and on, and they get it's fairly easy. Make sure they're all seated, and basically that is the loading procedure of the magazine. Now, when it comes time to put the magazine into the rifle, a couple of different ways we can do so, and I want to demonstrate them to you. First, I'm going to pull the charging handle back the entire way, okay, to pull the bolt back. I'm going to lock the bolt back with the bolt latch here, bolt latch lever or button. Okay, I push that down, let the bolt go forward and rest against the button. Now my charging handle is free floating, and I'll put it back into its original locked position. The bolt is now back. It's held back by the button. There is spring tension here that is ready to drive the bolt forward as soon as I allow it to go forward with the bolt. Release button there. I will take my magazine and insert it into the rifle. And you can see here, there it is now inserted, and because the bolt is back, there's not a whole lot of effort. Once it gets up there, it is basically seated. It's stuck in place or held in place by the magazine release catch. And to release the magazine, I've got to push the button, pull the magazine out. And that's the basic procedure with the bolt back. This can also be accomplished when the bolt is forward. I'm going to go ahead and put the trigger down. One of the things you probably want to do, and it's always a good idea, is go ahead and you can actually, once you pull the bolt back there, you can leave it like so, and you can put it on safe at that time. All right, and that's probably a good recommendation and something you should always do. In this instance, because I'm going to go ahead and have the bolt down, and I'm going to pull the trigger, I won't be able to put it on safe because you can't put it on safe unless the bolt is cocked or the hammer is cocked and the gun is ready to fire. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to insert the magazine up into the magazine well. And you'll see when the bolt is forward, you've got to give it a little extra push. You've got to be very careful, and you'll hear the click. You can even see the magazine release button kind of pop out into place. Again, demonstrate that. I'll bring it all the way out. Make sure you don't short stroke yourself here and just stick it up there and think it's in, because it's not really caught. You've got to get it in there and give it a nice little push. And now it's basically caught into the area there. Now, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and charge around into the chamber. To do that, you take the charging handle, and you'll see there's a little latch right here. You can pull that back, pull the charging handle all the way back, and now make sure you let it go and just let the spring, don't ride it down with your hand, just let it go. Now what I've done is I've actually charged around into the chamber. The first thing we're going to do at this point now is make sure that it's on safe. All right, always keep my finger out of the trigger guard area, off of the trigger while doing that whole procedure, and now put it on safe. I'm not going to fire right now. I'm going to show you how to unload the gun at this point. Remember, I've got a round in my chamber. I've got a fully loaded magazine. Go ahead and depress the magazine release button, pull the magazine out, put it away, and at this time, keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Pull your charging handle, watch the round fly out of the ejection port. There it goes. I'm going to visually inspect my chamber, make sure that there are no rounds inside there, let go, and pull the trigger in a safe direction. And again, a safe direction with a rifle of this caliber, a high-power rifle, is towards the ground. You never want to pull the gun off in with the gun facing up towards the air, because these rounds will go a mile or more. So you've got to be always careful of the direction of the muzzle when you pull that safety shot, and make sure it's pointed towards the ground, because that's the safest area. All right? So now let's go ahead and load up here one more time, and I'll actually fire a shot and then show you how to do the whole process. There's my magazine in. Go ahead and charge. Put it on safe. I'm going to put my glasses, my eyes, my ears. Just going to go ahead and fire one shot, take it off safe, and then we'll unload it again. All right, now we're going to go ahead. The first thing we're going to do is keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Put the rifle on safe, okay? Keep my finger out of the trigger guard area, off the trigger. Come up here and release the magazine with the magazine release button. Drop the magazine. Come back up using my charging handle. Pull it back briskly to eject the round that is still inside. Visually inspect that there are no rounds stuck inside there. The magazine is gone. Drop it, take it off safe, pull the trigger in a safe direction, and now we have an unloaded weapon. And that's the process you need to learn to load and unload, always keeping safety in mind. The object is to always make sure that that muzzle is pointed in a safe direction and that your finger is off of the trigger and out of the trigger guard area until you are ready to shoot. let's discuss now some basic principles about how to hold and shoulder and then shoot this firearm. The first thing is the actual grip and shouldering technique that I want to talk to you about. As you can see, this gun was designed for the average man. It is designed to be held by just about any person to be able to be comfortably shouldered and pointed and squeezed, and basically shot very accurately out to 200, 300 yards. Almost anybody I know with a little bit of training can be very accurate, can hit man-sized targets at 200 to 300 yards with really a very small amount of training. First, the grip itself. You can see it's designed with a rather small grip, and I've got rather large hands. So as I grip the gun, my trigger finger could naturally fall into basically the middle pad there. But I don't feel that that's the most recommended position or the best position for accurate or precision shooting and or rapid shooting. I feel the first pad on your trigger finger is the one you want to work with. So as I grab the grip on the gun, I have a tendency, and I feel it's best, is to put and work the trigger with my first pad on my index finger there. And I tell you what, when you first get the gun, I think you should take a little bit of time to just work with it in your own body and work with shouldering it. Now watch how I shoulder. We're going to go to this next step here, basically putting the butt of the gun into my shoulder, close into my shoulder, not out here, all right, not down there, up here as close to your face as possible, as close to your center line as possible. The closer you can get it to your center line, the more accurate you'll be for basically all precision or fast or rapid shooting, because it's basically centered up with your head. The less I have to stick my head over, the better I am. Plus the less felt recoil you will have, because the gun basically is centered in the mass of your body. So put that butt of the gun as close to your center line as possible, and as you can see what I'm going to do with my face. I'm going to get my face as far up as possible too, okay? As close to the sight as possible. And you'll see that we've got a rear aperture sight. There are two different sights here we've already talked about before. There is your standard opening aperture, which is basically a larger hole that's meant for shooting from 0 to 200 meters. And then you can flip this down, and you can see it's got a smaller hole that is meant for 200 to 800 meters. All right, so that's how those sights work. We're going to work with the larger aperture here in this presentation. And basically, again, shouldering the gun. Get it into your shoulder, get your face as far forward as possible, get as close to that sight as possible. Remember, this charging handle is not going to be flying back. There's nothing going to happen here. Everything that happens is internal. Let's get your face onto the gun like so, and I'll put my face down just like this, and this is really what you're looking to do, okay? Now this offhand or left hand, there's a lot of different ways to grab the gun for you, but for what I feel for true practical shooting, for instinctive point shooting, for fast rapid shooting, what I like to do is basically get my index finger on this left hand or offhand, point it straight down the barrel so it's like that, or bring it around and point it like so. You've got to determine what's going to work for you best. I like to be underneath personally. So when I can get the gun into my shoulder, bring it straight up, boom. Now again, watch my head, watch my face. My face is not dumping down. I'm bringing the gun to my face. I'm keeping my head erect, bring the gun straight up. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring that sight right up to my eyes and then be able to shoot. And I tell you what, you need to work with this gun in a dry fire mode. That means unloaded. You can do it in your house, don't have any ammunition in the room, but work with shouldering, pointing, getting the sights up to your eye before you go to the range. You'll find you'll get much more comfortable, much better results at the range once you practice with the gun in an unloaded position. And let's take a time right now to talk about the actual sight picture, what you're looking to do. This rear sight right here is a big round hole, okay? What we're looking to do now is put the post, that is the front sight, which we talked about earlier, inside of that round hole. And I'll show you here in a graphic what kind of sight picture you're looking for, what you're supposed to try to see. And you can see that you've got the front sight centered in between the rear aperture, focusing mostly on the front sight. And again, work with it in a dry fire mode. Once you get the shouldering and the stance and your entire position set up, now we can go ahead and just dry fire and work the trigger. And again, making sure the gun is unloaded, work the trigger. And get accustomed to working the trigger, what the trigger pull is going to be like before you actually go out to the range and shoot live ammunition. The more you dry fire, the better results you'll have. And the dry firing process should be done even before you go to the range, just to get comfortable with how to hold the gun and what that trigger feels like and what the sight picture you're looking for is supposed to look like. Let's discuss 4 basic shooting positions which you should practice and be comfortable with. Now understand, these are not your traditional NRA shooting positions. These are just basic shooting positions that you need to practice and know how to shoot from. First is going to be actually standing, okay? Before I even load the gun or charge around into the chamber, I want to basically a wide or somewhat wide stance. I like to be just about my heels basically shoulder height or shoulder width, knees somewhat bent, okay? Bring the gun up, shoot like this. I can lean forward into the gun. I want to have 60% of my weight forward, okay? I do have a sling here. I can just put my arm inside a sling, come back around like so, and under that like that. And that's basically my standing position right here like so. The key is to try to hold the gun as steady as possible, all right? Not to get any wobble in the gun. Now the gun's always going to be moving no matter how good a stance you have. And again, remember, this is more of a practical shooting stance. This is not your traditional NRA shooting stance where you're wearing a shooting jacket, leaning back, back is very rigid. This is not what that's all about. I've got other tapes on that. I've got a standard service rifle tape that talks all about those shooting positions. This is more practical shooting for everyday target shooting. I'm going to go ahead and charge around in the chamber. Again, when I let it go under its own pressure. I'm now ready to shoot. Not even going to put it on safe, just going to come up. Watch the technique here. Watch my stance. I'm leaning forward. All right, that's basically it, okay? Nothing really fancy about this. The key factor is keeping the weight forward, getting close up on the gun, and squeezing the shot off. Another shooting position that is very handy, probably one of the most used shooting positions, is a kneeling position. Now, when you kneel, I want to talk to you about this rear foot. This rear foot is going to give you, if you keep it up on the toe like this, this is going to give you a little bit of wobble, all right? So what you should train yourself to do is to lay that leg down, that foot down. That's very important for stability. In this position, you can see what I've got is I've got my foot laid down, leg all the way down, knee up here like so, and now I'm going to rest my left hand on here. I like to try to put my armpit in there if I can, and that's my position, right, like so, okay? The concept again for as little wobble as possible, and you'll find that what you're going to want to do is get yourself as small and as low to the ground as possible. The more you start to rely on muscles to hold yourself erect, the more wobble the gun will be, the more wobble there will be in the gun. So try to get as low as possible, get on the skeleton, and then just get yourself lined up. Shoot the shot. Fairly simple position. Another position is the sitting position. We're actually sitting on your butt. You can see what I'm doing here. Spread my legs a little bit. One leg out like so. Can bring myself with another leg here like this. Or I've seen people cross their legs and get very low to the ground and actually bring the gun up here like so. But you can see it starts to get uncomfortable depending upon your body style. You can put both elbows on your knees like this. This is another way to do it. But you can see again a lot of muscular support trying to get the gun up there to support the gun to my eye. So you can actually start doing one of these for sitting and actually pull the gun very close into your body. See again right here? I am leaning back somewhat, but there's not a whole lot of recoil with this 223. You could lean forward a little bit more, but what I'm trying to do is use as much skeletal support and not as much muscular support, because when you start using your muscles, you will over time tremble. Probably the most accurate form of shooting that you'll see is when you go prone, especially with a rifle like this. And there's a lot of ways to shoot prone. Some people like to be straight behind the rifle. Some like to be off at an angle. I'm going to be off at an angle here. Basically, I'm going to do everything except put the gun on the ground. Using my elbows, you can be very, very accurate here. And you'll find that prone shooting gives you the most accuracy, though it's not really the best way to go in true urban or combat shooting because you have no mobility whatsoever. That's why you'll find if you're going to practice urban or practical shooting, shooting from a kneeling position because it affords you cover is probably one of your best bets because you've got cover and you can get up and move when you need to as well. All right, so I think this is the one you want to start practicing. Lay that foot down, get yourself sighted in. Obviously, to get the most out of your rifle, most out of your firearm, you like to have it sighted in, and that's what we're going to do here in this segment. And there's a way you can do this with your AR-15 and the standard factory sights at 25 meters. Then by just using the click adjustments on the sights, you're able to go ahead and sight it in or use that same sighting in procedure to fire at 100, 200, 300 meters, whatever you desire. So you can see here that I've got a standard 2-inch aiming circle. Or square, and this is what we'll be aiming at. We're going to work at 25 meters. I want you to know one thing though about the AR-15 as it comes from the factory. If it's a brand new AR-15, if you're getting it out of the box, it's basically sighted in for 100 meters, 200 meters from the factory, so you really don't have to mess with it. But if you bought it from someone else and they've been playing with the sights or it's just not hitting where you want it to, here's a way that we're going to show you how to sight it in, not first at 25 meters, then use the click adjustments to bring out that adjustment out to 100, 200 meters. Let's get started. Okay, we're here back at the bench, and you can see I've got a little scope to be able to check out my results, and the gun is now unloaded, but I'm going to load it up. But first, let's look at our sights, and if Jimmy can go ahead and look down here, we're going to show you that the position as it comes from the factory is at 6.3. That means it's set for 300 meters. Some of the sights are going to come from the factory. They're going to say 8.3, again, set for 300 meters. When you want to go ahead and do the sighting in procedure, you want to leave it at that and move it up one more notch, okay? This is the sighting in procedure for 25 yards. We're going to move the sight up, basically, in this direction, one notch. There's my notch. Okay, and we're going to leave it there throughout the entire sighting in process. The other thing we're going to want to do, too, is turn our peep sight from our large aperture and put it into the small aperture. So I'll get my hand out of the way so Jim can see my peep sight. I'm going to pull it down so that the small peep is there. The other thing too is you want to make sure that the sight for the windage is lined up, that this line, and I'll see if I can get my pen in there, this line right here lines up with that line. And I'm going to stick my head in here and make sure that it is in fact just a little bit off. So why don't I go ahead and I'll affect the movement of the rear sight, and we're going to move it to the left. So I'm going to come back one click, and one more click, and one more click. So basically now, Jim can get in very close here. You'll see that these two lines are lined up. And at that point, now we're ready to go ahead and shoot. We're going to get a standard 6 o'clock hold on my black piece of tape. That means I'm going to put the front post, as it's centered up in my peep, I'm going to put the front sight right underneath the black tape. So if this is my black tape and this is my front sight, I'm going to put the front sight right underneath it. I'm not going to put the front sight on top of the black tape. I'm going to use a 6 o'clock hold, put the black or the front sight right underneath. Okay, that's the 6 o'clock. A 12 o'clock hold would be on top of the black tape. Again, we're using a 6 o'clock hold. That's a standard military hold. And there's a reason for that. When you get out to 200 and 300 yards, you start putting the front sight over top of your target, and you can't see the target anymore. So you have to start to use that 6 o'clock hold, because otherwise you won't be able to see your target or your aiming area. Got my eyes and ears on, of course. I'm going to go ahead and charge my magazine. You can see I've got a bench rest shooting position here. I'm going to try to take all the guesswork out of it. I'm going to go ahead and charge it up. Gun's pointing in a safe direction now. Get underneath there. Again, 6 o'clock hold. Get as comfortable as I can. Let's see where we're hitting. All right, you can see that I'm just off to the left. I'm on the tape, but I'm on the left side of the tape, and I'm basically in the center. So I'll take one more shot. That one surprised me. And that is inside the tape. Do another shot. And that's in the same hole as the first shot. I'll fire one more. And you can see that one is basically in the tape there. Looks good. I'll take one more shot. Got 4. Okay, so let's look at that shot. And you can see I've got 3 holes for my 5 shots. So my accuracy is really good, but I tell you what, I'm a little bit left of my center of the target that I'm aiming for, the aiming spot that I'm aiming for. So I'm going to look at this just a little bit closer. And if I really look here and really get a good look in there, you can see, and I'm going to let Jimmy's camera get in very close, that I'm basically just shy a notch, it looks like, of centering these 2 lines up exactly. All right, so now let's talk about moving the sights and what happens. The general rule of thumb here is you move the rear sight in the direction you want the shot to go. So all my shots downrange here are to the left, slightly to the left, but that will exasperate itself when I'm out of 200 yards. So at this point, I want my shots to move right. So I want to move my rear sight to the right. If you look here, as a nice close-up of the actual windage adjustment, you'll see that it has an arrow, and in the arrow it means right. So if I click it this way, I'm going to be moving right. So I'm going to move 1 click to the right. And here it goes. There's the click. And I'm going to look down here and I'm going to say, it's looking pretty good. Okay, so I've got 1 click to the right because I want to move my shots to the right. Okay, now that's how you work with your rear sight. Remember, again, the rule is to move the rear sight. You move the rear sight in the direction you want the shots to go. So if I want the shots to go up, I want to move my rear sight up. So if I'm hitting low on the target, I would move my rear sight up. Now here's where it gets tricky. For the front sight, you move the front sight in the opposite direction you want your shots to go. I'll show you what we've got. We've got a post and we've got a little detent button right there, and that's spring activated. I can get in there with just a cartridge and move that. Now I'm not actually going to move it here, but I will tell you this. It's basically the front sight is on a screw. When I move the front sight clockwise, I'm raising the sight. When I move it counterclockwise, I'm lowering the sight. Understand again that when I want to move my front sight, I want to move it in the opposite direction that I want to move my shot. So if I were shooting low, by chance, I would want to lower the rear sight because I want to raise my shots. Okay, so if I want to raise my shots, I want to lower the front sight. If I want to lower my shots, I want to raise the front sight. The front sight is raised by turning it clockwise. And to turn this, basically get in here with your the tip of your bullet and just depress the detent, and then you can actually turn it with the tip of the bullet, or you could even put a little small screwdriver on there and turn it manually. And that's how you work. So now that I've moved my rear sight 1 notch, let's go back and take a couple more shots here and see if we can be exactly in the center of that target. I'm good to go. Take off my safety. All right, through the same hole again. Let's try one more time. And it came right a little bit. Let's try it again. I think I pulled that one low myself, but it is centered up, so I think I'm okay here. And one more shot. Okay. Now, put the gun on safe. I'm gonna drop my magazine. Go ahead and eject the last round. Visually inspect the chamber. Pull the trigger in a safe direction. Okay, the gun's unloaded. Let's go down and look at our target and look at our results, and then we'll talk about putting this gun to the next position. And you can see that we have fairly good accuracy with that rifle at this distance, this 25-yard distance. Now the key is I was able to go ahead and effectively move my shots over from the left side here, moving my rear sight to the right, moving my shots to the right. And I'm pretty happy with this group. So let's move back down. I'll show you how to make one final adjustment on the rear sight, which will enable this gun that we just sighted in at 25 yards to shoot accurately at 100 and 200 yards. All right, now that we've got the rifle sighted in at 25 yards, 25 meters, basically what we're going to do is make one final adjustment on the rear sight. We're going to bring it back to its factory setting. Right here, whether it be 8.3 on your rifle or 6.3 as it is on this rifle, come back to the original position, back one notch, and now it's good to shoot out to 100 or 200 yards with fairly good accuracy. So, using the sighting in procedure we just demonstrated, and using factory Remington 223 ammunition with 55 grain hardball bullets, the muzzle velocity will be approximately 3,250 feet per second. By sighting in at 25 yards and then coming back one click to the original factory position, your bullet will now be 1 inch low at 25 meters or 25 yards. It will be dead on at 37.5 meters, 1.5 inches high at 50 meters. The bullet continues to rise to 4 inches high at 100 meters and 5 inches high at 150 meters. Then the bullet drops to 4 inches high at 200 meters and dead on at 250 meters. And then it drops to 5 inches low at 300 meters. It's interesting to note that if you sight in as suggested, there will be two distances where the bullet will strike the exact point of aim, at 37.5 meters and 250 meters. Also interesting, especially regarding combat shooting and combat accuracy, is that you have a 10-inch vertical window where the bullet will strike from the muzzle out to 300 yards. And on a human-sized target, and for combat shooting, this is more than adequate. One click up or down on the rear sight will change your bullet impact almost 1 centimeter at 25 meters and 7 centimeters at 200 meters. The downrange effects of one click with a shorter barrel are slightly more pronounced. Front sight elevation adjustments at 25 meters alter the point of impact from almost 1 centimeter with one click to 3.5 centimeters with 4 clicks. Again, the effects of each click of elevation are correspondingly greater with the 16-inch shorter barrel. Let's talk windage and the effects of distance on the windage adjustments. One click of windage represents 1/8 of an inch difference at 25 meters. But at 500 meters, the change in impact is 2 1/2 inches. If you're shooting the shorter barreled 16-inch AR-15, the impact change resulting from one click in windage adjustment range from 1/2 centimeter at 25 meters to over 9 centimeters at 500 meters.
What we're going to do is break apart an AR-15 for cleaning and maintenance. First thing, of course, is remove the mag, check the rifle, make sure it's unloaded. We'll see if I can push this pin out with my finger. It doesn't appear. So we'll take a little punch and lightly tap on the rear pin. course, this allows the gun to pivot on the front hinge pin, which also is removable. And the upper and the lower will separate. This is basically a stock gun. It has an H-bar barrel. The only difference is this particular gun has an Armalite aftermarket trigger, which is a very fine trigger, fully adjustable for weight, match grade trigger. But we'll go ahead and it disassembles the same way as the factory.
So you punch out which pin there?
Punch out. This is the hammer pin. And the hammer just lifts out with its hammer spring
Okay, hold
attached.
on. That's the hammer itself. The spring kind of just stays on it.
Stays right on the hammer. And we'll punch out the other pin for the trigger. There again, this is an Armalite aftermarket trigger. I really prefer this trigger for my match grade rifles.
Now, when you do trigger jobs on an AR-15, what do you do here at Clark's? What kind of?
The only kind of trigger job I do is with an aftermarket trigger, and in this case, an Armalite. And there again, I say it's fully adjustable with this screw for your trigger weight.
Oh, really? So you can just kind of.
All I have to do is adjust this screw, re-Loctite it, and I'm set to go.
So you tighten it to make it lighter, or?
Tighten it to make it lighter, and loosen it to make it heavier.
Wow. That sure makes it easy.
There again, here's your trigger return spring. There again, stays attached to the trigger. No problem.
Is there anything else in the bottom half there?
What you can do, if you remove the grip, see if I've got the right tools here.
Using a screwdriver, or?
It's actually an Allen screw, but a lot of times you can get a screwdriver into the slot. It's a large enough Allen screw that a screwdriver will go in it. And we'll take off the grip, which houses the spring for the plunger for the thumb safety.
Okay, so that just sits right there in the grip
The
itself.
spring goes in the grip itself. Here's the plunger for the thumb safety, which just fell out right there.
Okay.
And at this point, you can remove the thumb safety.
And that's 3 different parts.
Different parts. All right, what we'll do now is take off the stock, the top screw. Which will remove the stock from the lower receiver. And as you can see, they're coming apart.
So that's a long screw, huh?
No, it's not a long screw. You can see there's a tube which houses the spring,
Okay.
recoil spring. This screw actually just goes into the end of the housing.
All right.
This will unscrew. It's retained by a little pin, keeper pin in the front. If necessary, if you ever had to replace a recoil spring, I don't really know why you ever would, but this housing will unscrew and you could replace the spring and plunger.
Okay. Great. So that's really the bottom half there, huh?
Pretty much got the bottom half disassembled. What I'm going to do now is remove the parts of the upper, which actually are very few. We will pull the operation rod to the rear, which pulls the bolt back. The bolt will drop out of the bottom of the receiver, and the operation rod, which has a notch and a guide it rides in, will drop out also. As you can see on the sides of the rod here, there's 2 little ears. These are going into operation. You put the op rod into the bolt area and then lift it up, and you'll see in one place it will go up into an upper we'll say the little chamber for the op rod, with a place for the 2 little ears to ride, and it won't come out until this is in this rearward position also, right there.
Okay.
Fairly easy. And you've taken the whole bolt carrier group out and the operation rod. That's simple.
And so that's really basically the barrel right there.
This is the upper receiver and the barrel. About the only other thing you can do, and I'll see if I can do this with my fingers, is remove the handguard, factory handguard.
They just pop off?
It's a spring-loaded nut on the back here that holds the barrel on. This whole piece here is the barrel nut and the spring-loaded keeper for the handguard.
So you pull down.
See, it has quite a firm spring tension on it.
So you pull down, and then the foregrip just pops out.
And foregrip pops out. This is your gas tube, since it is a gas-operated gun.
And you need to get under there and clean under there, or not?
Probably almost never. I don't know that I've ever cleaned out my gas system, other than when I'm cleaning my barrel. I probably clean it to a small extent.
Okay. Just by cleaning the barrel.
I don't recommend removing the gas system, which is here with your front sight. It wouldn't be likely that you would wear the pins out, but it's not worth the trouble to take it off for cleaning when it doesn't really need any.
Right. Good. How would you recommend cleaning the barrel? At this state, then, just going ahead and run some patches?
There, like you would any centerfire rifle. Just any good, whatever you prefer for a solvent. I prefer just patches unless you've got a really badly fouled barrel. And then, of course, I'll go ahead and use a bronze brush.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. And you want to look at the bolt assembly at all, or?
Really, the things that you can, the bolt assembly, of course, it's fairly maintenance-free. The only thing I like to do is on this side, and you can actually see where it's riding on these ribs, 4 little ribs, here and here. Occasionally, I'll take mine apart and put some heavy grease on it, just on those ribs, and reinsert it into the gun. It's very seldom that these gas systems would ever come loose, but if they do, here are the 2 screws, and like I say, the screws are crimped in, so it'd be rare that one would ever come loose.
Now, how about the bolt face itself? Would you clean it?
It's a locking bolt face. Very seldom. I keep it lubed with a light oil. Other than that, it's pretty well maintenance-free.
Okay, and you wouldn't recommend taking that apart at all?
No, I wouldn't. I don't take the bolts apart at all. Only if I'm having some trouble.
So what's that?
That's the keeper.
Okay.
And then here's your firing pin.
And that's basically it then, huh?
That's it. And it's a floating firing pin, so if you, I get asked questions sometime, when I drop my bolt, I'm leaving a very small mark on the primer. Of course, I didn't snap the trigger. And the reason there is this is a floating firing pin. And the inertia just of closing the bolt might leave a tiny speck onto the end of the primer.
Mm-hmm. And the firing pin is, there are some aftermarket firing pins.
There are some titanium firing pins. I'm not that big a fan of titanium. I've never really seen that big of an advantage to it. People say, well, you've got a faster lock time with the titanium parts. As far as I'm concerned, you can make up accuracy and speed in a whole lot of other places than trying to put faster pieces in, because you're talking milliseconds would be the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go back together with the upper half. Operation rod, bolt carrier group.
Any particular way that goes in, or is it?
Well, the op rod simply goes in the way we described earlier, with the little ears in the guide,
right
up high. This part of the gas system will ride through the handle of the op rod. It's got a little hole for it, and you simply push them forward until they click in.
Okay.
Very simple system that works great. And we'll put on the hand guard. On a lot of the AR-15s, you won't be able to take these hand guards off with your fingers unless you've got about 20 of them. That one went on fairly easy.
20 fingers, that is, right?
20 fingers, you bet. Now we'll put together the lower receiver. Slide the stock on. Tighten the rear screw. The thumb safety will simply slide in. Now take your plunger for the thumb safety. Install it in the hole. The spring will go in the grip and right against the bottom of the plunger. And simply tighten down the screw in the bottom of the pistol grip. And now you've got click and tension on your thumb safety. Take the trigger assembly and simply drop it in, making sure the legs of the spring are forward, and simply line up the holes.
Is that a one-sided pin?
Actually, the pin, it'll go in either side. I like to put the grooves in on the right-hand side of the gun as you look at it from the rear, where the hammer pin or hammer spring will have a groove to ride in. These springs will fit into these grooves and give the hammer some tension, or the pins some tension where they wouldn't just fall out. Okay, the hammer, make sure the springs are behind the sear pin. The bottom legs of the sear spring, or the hammer spring, ride on the sear pin. And simply line up the holes again. Drive in the pin and check your trigger, which this one is fairly light. It's probably set at about 2 pounds or less. Now we'll reattach the lower and upper halves. Simply take the hinge pin in the front, line up the holes here, and push it in. Same thing in the back. Of course, they'll line up automatically since the front one's in. And you're ready to go.
Good.
Ready for more fun. Yep. What I want to show you here is the different modifications that we do on the AR-15, and from the muzzle brake, floated forearm, Harris bipod, and of course the optics. This is what I like to call my sure enough go faster gun. This is my running gun and my main competition gun. It's an Armalite gun. There again, I've got a 1.5 to 5 Leopold scope on it, WCPI forearm floated, a Harris bipod, and a Clark muzzle brake.
Now, when you say floated, what does that mean?
Well, the barrel is completely free of touching anything outside. I can, with the Harris bipod pushing down or pushing on the forearm anyway, I'm not putting any pressure on the barrel. The barrel is completely free of any of the external parts as far as me pushing on it.
So it just is coming right out of the...
Helps for more accuracy, sure, especially with this Harris bipod or The standard gun, if I'm putting a lot of pressure on the standard forearm, I'm actually pushing on the barrel also.
Oh, okay.
So this, of course, is what they call a free-floating barrel, which doesn't have any tension on it whatsoever.
So this gun is, say, more reliable and more accurate?
Not necessarily more reliable, but definitely more accurate.
Uh-huh. Talk about the Clark muzzle brake. What's that do for you?
This is something that Jerry Mitchell designed back in, I guess, the early 80s. When they started having the rifle event at the Steel Challenge. He won it back-to-back for a few years, and nobody could figure out how he was really putting it on us so bad until I checked out his muzzle brake. We went into production on it, and we've had great response as far as the sales and the effectiveness of it.
What's it do?
Of course, keeps there's not a lot of recoil, let's face it, in a 223. It's a real minor recoiling cartridge. But what it does do is keeps your muzzle still during what little recoil there is. There's no muzzle rise, and just a faster makeup shot or a second shot.
Hit right. Micklick wins.
Go down to the wire, Jerry.
Cool. And what kind of barrel do you have in this one?
This is an Eagle factory barrel. There again, it's an H-bar barrel, which means heavy barrel, and this particular gun has a stainless barrel on it.
All right. And the bipod you use for prone shots?
Prone, or if you're a snake like me, a high sitting or kneeling, or I've put it on my toes before, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Okay, and anything else in the back end here? What's your trigger set at?
There again, this is the trigger system that was in the other gun, the standard gun. This is an Armalite match trigger. It's probably set at right about 2 pounds, which really enhances speed and just the ease of shooting. We put these guns together completely, there again, either with the fiber forearm, an aluminum forearm, or whatever the customer prefers, really. We've had, like I say, great success. It's a foolproof rifle. They're easy to, maintenance-free as far as shooting. You can go play all day or all weekend and really not have to do anything with this gun to shoot it. It's easy to shoot. It really doesn't have a whole lot of competitors right now, so it's easy to sell also. What I've got here is the same rifle we went through inside the shop. There again, it's a floated handguard, Harris bipod, Clark muzzle brake. This particular gun has a 1.5 to 5 Leopold scope on it, which I prefer for combat because about 75% of your shots in an IPSC, a typical IPSC match, will be short. You'll have one standards course for your lengthy shots, and 5 is still enough magnification to get by there. Have a Armalite trigger in the gun, and it is an Armalite gun, and actually is a on-demand minute of angle or better gun with my good match ammo.
Okay, and so when you use this in competition, what type of ammo do you like to shoot?
Usually my hand loads, of course, for competition purposes. If we're out here just playing or teaching a class, simply military ball is sufficient. In a match, I don't want to take any chances. We've had half IPSC targets at 350 yards, which you're not going to get the best accuracy out of your GI ball at that distance, so hand load for that.
And so what is your hand load, or do you want to...
Oh, that's a complete secret. I couldn't tell you that. No, really, any hand load will do. I've shot everything from 52 grain Sierras up to... right now we're running the Hornady VMAX bullets, which is like a ballistic tip bullet. Either one of them do a real good job.
Okay. Now, how about shooting this gun? Any tips and techniques you can share with us?
Tips and techniques. The best tip I can give you is, oh goodness, in high school, my 6th period class every day was to go shoot 4-position rifle. And that's essentially where I learned to shoot a rifle, every day. For 4 years, I went in and I was in ROTC, high school ROTC, ROTC, and I was on the rifle team, and every day, that's what I did. I shot for an hour, shot standing, kneeling, and prone. The combat part of it, of course, came afterwards. I'm an avid hunter. I use some of my hunting techniques in my competition shooting. As far as tips per se for shooting, the same thing goes for rifle that goes for shotgun and pistol. I want to mount the gun smoothly. I don't want my head to be chasing the gun. I want the gun to come between my eye and the target, and a good smooth first shot.
How about the trigger pull on these things?
This gun is set at about 2 pounds, which for several years I shot with a factory trigger just because I was simply afraid, and there's a lot of horror stories about doing trigger jobs on existing parts, which I would never have. There are now aftermarket triggers which are do a very fine job. The one I like in this particular case is the Armalite.
All right, and where do you have? Let's see your grip and how you hold the gun.
Of course, with a pistol grip AR-15, there's really only one way to hold it. The only difference there being is even with a fairly small hand like mine, you're going to get a lot of finger in on the trigger guard or on the trigger. I pull with the middle of the second pad simply because that's where it's comfortable for me, and I don't want to have to fight the trigger to get anywhere else on it. Occasionally, I might pull with the middle of the first pad if I'm shooting some kind of precision match. Speed, I just go ahead and jam my whole finger in there and let her rip.
Okay, and you hold with that basically a pistol grip then, huh?
With a pistol grip, you bet.
Okay, and how about your other hand, your left hand?
Left hand, I usually, if I'm shooting offhand, I hold it just like I do my shotgun. I'm going to point my pointer finger of my left hand down the floated handguard and at the target when I mount the gun.
So you're using that finger, huh?
Using that finger, pointing it at the target.
Okay, let's see the mount there, good. All right, and now obviously in IPSC competition stance, you really don't have a chance to get a true shooter stance, or do you?
Possibly for the first shot. Usually they're not going to let you take a loaded sight picture. There again, that's where your practice on your one-shot draw comes in handy. Now, if I could take a loaded sight picture at every match, I would get ready and leave my head still and just bring the gun down. But since they're not going to let you have a loaded sight picture, the best thing is to go out and to practice that one-shot draw. I know where it's going to be at before I ever load the gun and start to the line. I'm going to gain a half a second on half of the competition right there.
Just by getting that first shot off
Just
quick.
by getting the first shot off quicker.
All right, and how about your feet? How do you hold your legs?
Just a comfortable stance. In fact, what I do, if I'm uncertain about it, I mount the gun with my eyes closed. And I'm out, all right, it's comfortable right there. All right, I look at the scope, my target's just a little bit to the right. So now I'm going to turn to put my target where the gun was comfortable at.
So you turn your feet around and just kind of get your feet
Turn my whole body around, you bet.
matched up with where the gun's pointing.
You bet.
Great. Okay, and when you shoot on these matches, obviously there's several. They usually will throw a couple different positions in on you.
More than likely. In fact, a lot of times you'll fire more shots out of positions prone and sitting and kneeling than you will offhand. And that's where I think I've got a big advantage over everybody. My brother-in-law accuses me of being a snake, so I can get into positions that most people can't get into.
Do they say you have to shoot 2 shots kneeling or 2 shots prone, or what will they say in some of these courses?
Occasionally, they sure will. Of course, the closer I can get to the ground, the better off I am. This year at, say, Soldier of Fortune, we had a 3-box station at the 300-meter line. You shot kneeling, sitting, and prone, 1 from each box. So that was in, I think, 6 shots from each box, 18 shots. That's an awfully important stage right there.
And since you've practiced those, let's see some of your different kneeling positions.
Well, we'll try some IPSC stuff since this is the gun that I shoot in IPSC. Really, it's a lot steadier for me. Of course, a standard kneeling position, here's what most people are going to do.
Right.
But for IPSC or combat, there really are no rules. This is not NRA. So when they say sitting or kneeling, it's going to take... How's this for a sitting?
That looks pretty good.
It's as steady as prone, if you can get into it. For me, it's fairly easy.
Okay.
Of course, now it matches like Soldier of Fortune. They don't allow bipods. So when they say sitting, here's what I do.
So it really gives you a steady.
You bet. This is a very steady sitting position, if you can call it a sitting position.
So you're always looking to balance that gun,
I'm
huh?
always the best way I can steady the rifle. You bet.
Okay, how about your kneeling position? What do they do that?
Kneeling position. Instead of sitting on my foot like a regular NRA kneeling position, this is also a legal NRA position, but for combat, according to what the distance is or what the situation is, I actually rest the gun across my knee instead of a standard kneeling position.
So that seems to be, yeah, so the gun actually rests on your knee
Resting on my knee, and this is much steadier
versus having your elbow on your knee.
but versus having my elbow on my knee.
Because you have all of a sudden two things to start wobbling.
Yes.
So let's see your stance again. So really getting the gun low into your body, huh?
There again, I guess that's why Jerry calls me a snake. I like to get low to the ground and get as much of my body as I can on the ground.
Okay, and so I hate to ask you about your prone position. Let's see it.
Well, prone position is pretty standard. There's not really a whole lot of variation you can do there, even though I consider myself very good at prone.
So you're off at an angle to the gun?
At a slight angle, yes. There again, if I've got a shooting box that is small or whatever, I can get into some very small boxes.
Uh-huh. And you like to tuck that left arm back?
I do, just for I can elevate the gun with my hand instead of trying to move my shoulder around to get the gun in a different position. On occasions, if I'm trying to go really fast and I don't have time to bring this hand back, I'll go ahead and leave it on the forearm.
How about for Soldier Fortune when you can't use a bipod?
I'll leave the hand up front, because there's nothing to hold the gun up. I can't put my hand in the back. For Soldier Fortune, it'll be off the ground just like this.
What kind of accuracy can you get out of this gun?
With my hand loads, I can, on a good calm day, I can, on demand, shoot 3/4 inch groups. Yeah, I don't shoot anything less than a 5-shot group, and at 100 yards at least. This is just a kind of a little drill I like to do quite often. I've only got one target out here, which is a steel plate, and I'm going to shoot about 4 shots at it. It's about at 85 yards. I'm going to shoot 4 shots at it offhand, run to my first shooting box here, go sitting, shoot 4 shots at the plate, get up, move to the third box, and shoot 4 shots prone at it. It's a very simple exercise, but it seems to work as far as getting me ready to go into different positions and whatnot.
And when you would talk about your practice or recommend practice to someone, would you think 85 would be a good yardage, or would you work even have different yardages?
Most of your assault courses are going to be from 100 yards in. In fact, at a lot of places we've had them to where the long shots were 50 yards and in. So that's the one reason I like to use the low power scope.
Right.
You're not going to get like an IPSC target at 15 or 20 yards. If you're running a lot of magnification, when you throw it up, all you're going to see is brown cardboard.
So where would you sight this gun in at then?
Usually I've got it an inch high at 100 yards, which is going to be about dead on at 50, dead on at 200 yards, and probably 6 inches to 8 inches low at 300.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and try it.
All right, we'll give it a try. All right, here we go.
So you really can pick up the speed when you get into positions, can't you?
Yeah, pick up the speed. Anytime you can brace the gun, you bet. Especially with this compensator, it's not going to really allow the gun to move much after each shot. So I can go ahead and start prepping the trigger for the next shot immediately. Especially, of course, in the prone position, as you can hear.
So you really hammered it in the prone position.
And in prone, you can just about as fast as you can pull the trigger.
Is that where you pick up a lot of your advantage? Because it doesn't seem, I don't know if I've seen a whole lot of other competitors shoot that fast.
I like to feel that I can shoot as fast or faster than anybody in prone. Yeah, I do. And especially with the muzzle brake. What most people do on their bipod, I never have, maybe I'm just lazy, is they put a string in between the, or a handle. Actually, they make a handle with a button on it you can push here, which will pull your bipod down. If they've got a string with a little gap, all you do is pull the string and it'll pull it out. Personally, I've always just grabbed it with my hand and just pulled down on both of them at the same time. Possibly it's a little easier with a string. Again, it's just a matter of personal preference.
But one of the techniques you have is that you are able to get down and shoot just so fast.
Of course, a lot of shooting. Like I say, for 4 years, that's all I did was position shooting. So I pretty well had that part in me when we started combat. I've done a lot of stretching. Did martial arts for several years, so I'm into the stretching part of it. I can get into positions that are uncomfortable for everybody else, that are almost natural for me. So it's a big advantage.
And how about the target acquisition with that scope? I mean, obviously, sometimes it's a little bit difficult.
Yes, on 1 power or 1.5 power with the 1.5 Leopold, I've got a 66-foot field of view at 100 yards, which of course is huge compared to a lot of scopes.
Right, so that's somewhat of an equipment advantage there.
A big advantage. I'm not having to hunt for the target. I'm not looking through my scope and then trying to find the target. Even if I go down and I'm not quite in line with a 66-foot field of view at 100 yards, I can find it.
All right, let's go do another run. So again, when you shoulder the rifle, the thing is keep that head still, right?
I would like to be able to shoulder the rifle. All right, I'm acquired the target right here. I don't want to look for the gun and then the target with my head. So what I'd like to do is be able to just to bring the gun up between my eye and the target, ideally.
All right. So again, you really can blaze them off when you get down prone.
Yeah, when I get on my belly like a snake, I can go pretty fast.
And so, how would you practice that kind of stuff? Just get out here and just start to do some rounds?
Just get out here and burn some powder. There again, you mentioned being at a slight angle to the gun. Whatever is a comfortable position for you. I'm comfortable in just about any position. I can lay beside the gun, square to it, 90 degrees to it, and I can go. And it's just a matter of I've done all those positions for a number of years, and they're second nature to me. The trick to these sitting positions to me, or in any position, is bracing myself in every direction I can, sideways, up and down. That's why I go ahead and take the time to extend the legs and put them on my toes for this sitting position. It may not be quite as fast for the first shot, but I can more than make up for the time on my splits and the accuracy of my hits. There again, I'm holding my feet out straight. I've got my left forearm wrapped around my left knee, my right forearm up the right thigh. When I get into this position and get locked good, it's about as steady as my prone. And what I'll do, I'll just shoot a burst on that plate down there at 85 yards in what somebody would call a sitting position. And it's very simple position to me. Not everybody can get into it, but if you can, it actually works real good. And we'll go ahead and finish out this magazine on that target. Bipod on the toes, not on the top of the point of the shoe, actually just resting on the back side of my toes, and I'm pushing into it. I'm pushing also with my forearms and pulling with my left arm around the left knee. You can get rid of a whole lot of bullets real quick this way.
So that whole isometric thing, the pulling and pushing.
You bet. I'm pulling and pushing and bracing my body every way I can.
Now, I think, do a lot of people overcomplicate or fear this rifle in a sense? They think it's going to have too much kick? Or?
Not particularly with the 223, because even without the compensator, there's very little recoil. The only difference would be without the compensators, you will experience more muzzle rise and a slower recovery time.
Right, so you really have to wait.
You'll have to wait a little bit on the recovery, you bet.
It appears with the muzzle brake you don't have to wait at all. The gun just goes nowhere.
Just as fast as I can prep the trigger in prone and shoot the next shot, it's ready to go.
Right, and because on prone you even have a little bit more, you're pushing down.
You bet. The gun's locked into the ground, Harris bipod set up, Hammer City.
Let's talk now about urban combat shooting, or should I say self-defense shooting with the AR-15 rifle. Understand that this is a high-powered rifle, has the ability to shoot right through walls, right through cinder blocks, right through steel. Okay, these are armor-piercing capacity, these cartridges, the ball cartridges. And what I want to show you a little bit is demonstrate some of the power of this weapon if you open your mind up to it to see what it can do. I've got 4 targets set up here. Basically, what I've done with these targets is I've put white aiming squares here because that's what I want to shoot for. I want to be able to keep all my shots within that white aiming square. And there's a reason for that. If you look at that white aiming piece of paper, which is basically an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, is about the size of the vital area of a human torso. So if I can keep all my shots within that aiming spot, that aiming piece of paper, then I feel that I've got acceptable self-defense accuracy, okay? That's acceptable in this type of environment. I'm not looking for extreme precision right here. I'm looking for some fast shooting, and I want to keep everything within these white pieces of paper. Another thing to consider too is that when I practice, I don't want to always practice at just the full-size targets. Okay, or should I say the full height targets. I want to make sure that I set up a couple short ones too. You can see these are basically full height, as if a man's going to be standing there with a rifle or a pistol, something I've got to defend myself against. But I tell you what, if bullets are flying and things are starting to happen, what's going to happen is people are going to bend down, they're going to duck, they're going to get behind cover. You're going to start finding that you're going to be shooting at targets that are lower than standing position. So if you don't practice here on the range, when time comes, hey, you may not have the ability to start to access those targets on a lower than standing position. So set up some targets that are even lower, that are low like this. You could even set up some low targets as if a guy were laying prone. It's a good way to practice, good way to develop your skills for true self-defense shooting. Obviously, I've got my eyes and ears here. Going to go ahead and back up now. Let's go ahead and shoot some of these targets. And I'm going to work with a distance of about 20 yards. You can be closer, basically, but what I want to do, I'm just going to charge the gun up and get myself here at about 20 yards, just do some fast shooting on one target only, okay? As if I were standing, as if I had to move. And I tell you what, if someone's shooting at you, you better start moving. You can't just stand here and shoot, okay? So what I want to do is I'm going to move this way a little bit as I shoot and try to keep all my shots on that one piece of paper. I'm going to start here in a low ready position, keeping the gun shouldered, because if something's happening, I want to just be able to bring it up and shoot. And move. Shoot. And keep moving. get out of the way. All right, the idea is you have to develop some of this movement skill because that's what you're going to be doing. If something's coming down, you cannot just sit there and shoot. You have to go ahead and see the target and move, okay? That's what we're looking for. Stay right there, okay? All right, so here we'll do it again. All right, I see there's a problem. Oh. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to keep everything on a target while I move to cover or while I move to get out of the way of his gunfire. Again. So we can look down at the range here. You see the target. You can tell I get a little bit into this. I get out of breath, get moving because that's what's going to happen. I want to get myself out of breath. Majority of my shots are basically right where I want them to be, on the white aiming spot, okay? Got some scattered shots here too. But again, I'm not looking for true precision in this drill. I'm looking for the ability to keep most of my shots on the paper while I'm going for cover. And that's a drill that I think you need to start to incorporate in some of your practice sessions so that if something were to happen in a true self-defense environment, you'll be able to do it. All right, this next drill, what I want to do is I want to try to keep all my shots in that white paper, but I want to do it while moving away from the threat. Remember, we're good guys here. We don't really want to shoot anybody. We want to stop someone from shooting us. That's why I've got my weapon, and that's why I want to get away from the threat, which is the gunfire. So the object now is as I move, I don't want to move just straight back because it makes it too easy of a shot. All he's got to do is pick his gun up and just track me straight like that. I want to make the guy work for the shot. I want to make him move the muzzle. And able to elicit that, I want to move diagonal and away, back and to an angle. So here's my bad guy, okay? We're approximately at 5 feet, 10 feet. I go ahead and I see that there's a problem. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come that way. I'm going to go, ooh. And you can see when you start moving like this, your accuracy starts to really go down. Only got a couple shots on my target and sprayed a couple up top high. So let's try it one more time on this next target, see if we can get a little bit of accuracy. So many shots we have left. Good, I got plenty here. Again, what I want to do is I want to get away from the target, okay? He's the bad guy. I'm getting away. I'm coming back. All right, good. Managed to keep most of them where I want them. Basically here in my white paper. And getting away from the threat as fast as possible. One of the things we've got to talk about in this segment is shooting from behind cover, at least practicing shooting from behind cover. And a lot of that can be done in dry fire just to get used to the positions. But when you get to the range, try to find a spot where you're actually able to shoot while concealed or while behind cover. Got a brick wall here, got my target downrange there at about 40 yards or so. One of the things that I feel is extremely important, and again, going back to our positions, is being able to shoot from behind cover. You can see that I don't want to get shot, I want to stay behind the cover. And I don't want to hug the cover. One of the mistakes a lot of people make is they want to get up here like this, and then you have really no place to go. See what's happening? I got to go up here like this, and I give the guy a perfect headshot. Last thing you want to do is get shot in the head. So let's make it a little harder for him to shoot us. Let's stay back behind the wall, okay? Give myself some vision as well as some mobility, all right? That's what we're trying to accomplish here. We want to be able to see what's happening as well as be able to respond, to move. What if a guy comes around the corner up there and I'm hugging the wall? I got no place to go, all right? I don't really have a whole lot of options because here's the wall. I really limit my ability to move. Again, I also limit my vision and I limit my ability to shoot because I've got to come up over top. Remember, you see a lot of those scenes in Vietnam where the guy's just shooting over like so? Well, no one wants to get shot, and I kind of don't blame them, but I tell you what, you'll get a lot better accuracy and a lot better hits if you stay back behind cover, okay? And This is why that kneeling position can really come into play. Get yourself lined up on a target. Squeeze your shots off. And you'll see that I've got good accuracy down there on my target. Keeping yourself away from cover, learning how to shoot in these low positions is extremely important for self-defense. All right, and again, and then move. Learning how to move. I tell you what, if there is a problem in your neighborhood, a riot, a situation where you need to employ this gun, let's hope you've taken the time to at least think about how to shoot from behind cover, how to get cover, how to maintain a low profile. Because when bullets are flying, this is what people do. They stay low. And the last thing we're going to talk about while using cover, especially in an urban environment, is never go prone. Never lay down to make a shot. Now, we talked about it being the most accurate position. Unless you're a sniper and no one knows where you're at before you take that first shot, you're going to be in big trouble. Okay, there's my shot. Again, extremely accurate. But if someone's coming around the corner, I can't go anywhere. Can't get up, I can't move. I've limited my vision, I've limited my mobility, and I tell you what, that's how people get killed in these kind of situations. It doesn't come down to who's the best shot, who's the most accurate shot. It comes down to who has the most tactics, who has the most cover, who has the ability to use cover, and who uses their head. All right, because once you go prone, once you lay down on your belly, you've got no mobility, you've got limited vision, and I tell you what, if these are the bad guys or the people you're trying to keep out of your house or away from your belongings or away from your family, if they have any sense, they're going to rush you while you're prone, and there's not a whole lot you can do at that point. Let's go down and look at our target, see what kind of accuracy we had from behind cover. And you can see now that we're managed to keep all of our shots within our 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, our aiming paper, from that cover position, shooting from cover from the kneeling position. Again, remember, when bullets start to fly, everybody wants to get low, and everybody's going to start seeking cover. You need to train yourself to shoot from behind cover at low targets. And you need to be able to keep all your shots within this 8.5 by 11 shot area, okay? We're not looking for extreme accuracy. We're looking to keep them within this at 40 to 60 to 100 yards. And you can do it with this rifle because it's an excellent rifle. All right, in the self-defense arena, there are no rules. So when we shoot for precision accuracy, there are some little tricks we can play that will enable you to shoot better regardless of what skill level you have. And one of them is using some type of support. So imagine that this is a wall or just a post that it is. I've got a shot at 200 yards. Again, this is not an NRA competition, this is survival. I want to hit my target. So what I'm going to do is get up here, put a hand on the support, and put the gun right on the support and hold the gun, okay? Get my shot lined up. So you can hear 3 shots there, very accurate, hitting right on the plate. Again, you can do the same thing. Get yourself low. Let the barrel rest. These are close distances, really. That's about a 200-yard shot. And by using a support, no matter what it is, at these type of distances, 150, 200, 300 yards, your accuracy will increase itself exponentially. So start to practice when you go to the range to get in some positions. Again, I'm affording myself some cover. I'm being able to increase my accuracy dramatically. Center the shot up just like we talked about. Squeeze around, and you've got accuracy all day long. One of the things you should practice with the AR-15 is multiple target acquisition drills. and you can do these at short distances, 15, 20 yards. I'm going to use a timer so I can look back at my times and see how fast my shots are. I'm trying to keep everything, again, on my aiming paper, okay? And I've got 3 targets set up. I'm basically going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just keep on shooting. Let's see what kind of times we can get. I'm going to move back here now, about 15 yards. And the idea is being able to keep that front sight in your focus the whole time, all right? So here we are, again at about 15 yards. Just come up here, get the gun shouldered, boom, boom, boom. See how we go, okay? All right, let's do it again. Basically, I got 3 shots there in 3 seconds, 2.5 seconds. First shot was in 0.9. Second shot was in 1.76 seconds. And third shot was in 2.49. So we'll do it again. Now, I'm not looking for speed as much as I'm looking for accuracy. Let's keep them on the paper. All right, same basic time there. First shot was a little slower. Here we go. That was better, 224. Speed them up as we get warmed up. Here we go. Keeping everything in the paper. Good. Much faster there. You can see you don't have to shoulder the weapon if you've got the gun pointed. It's a lot faster. It's 1.81. We'll do it again, okay? Much better. 155 there for 3 shots. First shot was at 0.27. Go ahead and review this again. Second shot was at 0.93. Third shot was 1.55. Here we go again. Much faster. Again. .4. This time let's speed it up. Now we got some accuracy. We've got a little bit of confidence going. We're going to speed it up really fast. Ready? All right, 3 shots in .93. Good hits too. Let's try it again. All right, we got 3 shots in .84. So you can see you can be extremely fast, extremely accurate at these close distances from target to target with the rifle. All right, and that's what we've got. We got all of our shots basically in our aiming spot here. Again, they scatter a little bit on the second shot, but they're all there. And here's my third target. So the concept is you've got to get to the range and practice these kind of drills because this is what's going to help you survive. This is what's going to help you win in case something happens with your AR-15. The AR-15 is capable of delivering awesome firepower. I've got loaded 26 rounds now, 25 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. I'm going to demonstrate to you how fast one can deliver these rounds and what kind of accuracy we can have here at, say, 15 yards. I'm going to use my timer. Got a little hitch on the trigger there in the beginning, but I managed to get all rounds out in 5.5 seconds. You can look down here at my target. Basically, everything's in my aiming paper. And that's the kind of accuracy, that's the kind of firepower you can deliver with an AR-15 with just a little bit of practice. Doesn't take a whole lot. The rifle is extremely accurate. But let's practice with the trigger finger. You can get them all out very fast. This 223 cartridge is a very penetrating round. That's one of the reasons it was picked by the Army. He's able to penetrate steel out at 200 yards, 250, 300 yards. We're going to demonstrate a little test here. We've got a cinder block that I've got some pieces of. We've got it doubled up to show you what kind of effect this .223 round is going to have firing into the cinder block. It's probably going to punch a hole right through. We'll see. Don't really know what's going to happen. We're going to punch a hole into it. We've got a witness plate here in the back. And what I want you to start thinking about is what is truly cover versus what is concealment. When you start looking for a place to hide, why don't you try to find a place that, one, is going to stop that round. What's going to stop it? Well, we know that the .223 cartridge is going to go through wood, it's going to go through wallboard, it's going to go right through a lot of brick and stone. Chances are a big fat tree, some kind of steel, thick steel is going to be stopped. So think about cover versus concealment. Concealment just hides you. Cover keeps those bullets off of you. Let's go back and see what kind of damage we can do to this cinder block here. I'm going to fire one shot. I've got basically the cinder block doubled up. And now you have to imagine that if this cinder block was filled with rebar and concrete, chances are that this bullet would not go through. Let's see what it does just to the cinder block itself here. All right, you can see that we certainly blew the cinder block up, but it does not appear that we have elicited a hole in our witness plate. It appears that what happened is it blew the first one straight through, but it did stop right here. So, at this close distance, the cinder block proved itself to be a fairly good stopper. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of splatter on the back there, and that's another good reason you want to stay away from cover when you are in a real gunfight. Stay back from that cover. In case a bullet were to fragment, chances are the farther away from cover you are, the better off you'll be. Okay, now we've shot this rifle. Now it's time to clean the AR-15. We're going to field strip it, clean it, put it back together again. First thing you got to do every time you work with a firearm, especially in the cleaning process, is to ascertain that the gun is in fact unloaded. A lot of mistakes happen right in this process. Right when people are cleaning, they think the gun is unloaded, and people have accidental discharges. And especially with a rifle like this, a high-powered rifle, you've got to be extremely careful because these rounds go through walls, all right? Now, of course, when you bring it back from the range, it should be unloaded. It should be unloaded in your house. But before we start here, the first thing we're going to do is drop our magazine, lay it off to the side, keep my fingers away from the trigger and trigger guard area, pull the charging handle back, and visually inspect the chamber. All right? I'm going to make sure there are no rounds inside there. Sometimes the extractor will break or it will fail, and a round could be held inside of the chamber. So you've got to look inside the chamber with your eyes, make sure it is empty, and once you see that it is so, let the charging handle go and pull the trigger in a safe direction. And I feel the safe direction is down, okay? Okay, now we know we have an unloaded gun. It's time to break this gun apart and start the cleaning process. And if you look at the gun, there are basically two pins right here that are my takedown pins, and we've got one in the rear part of the gun and one in the front. I'm going to turn the gun over and show you the corresponding pins again. Here with the AR-15, we've got a push pin for the rear pin, and we've got a screw head pin for the front or the aft pin. So I'm going to go ahead now and push this through. You can see it comes flush with the receiver itself. And I'm going to take a plastic instrument, not a steel instrument, because you've got to remember the receiver of this gun is made of aluminum. And if you use any kind of steel, it will in fact scratch the body of the gun. So now you'll see I'm going to go ahead and just lift it out a little bit, get it started. And at this point I could grab it with my fingers, but I'm just going to do this for TV so you can see it. Comes all the way out. And now the gun will break apart kind of like a shotgun. See, just like that. Okay, now I could go ahead and facilitate the entire cleaning process just like this, but for this TV demonstration, I'm going to take the upper receiver off of the lower receiver, and to do so I need to come over here and use a flathead screwdriver right in this screw slot here. And I'm going to put it in there like so and just loosen it and back it off all the way out. And I'll finish it now with my hands. And you'll see when I bring it out, there is a little red dot of Loctite, which you can use if you so desire. So let me put the screw away. And now I could like to go ahead and start the pin a little bit if I can with this plastic tool just to get it started. Okay, and I got to push down hard just to get that pin moving. All right, and once I've got it moving, again using a plastic instrument, I'm going to come on the other side here, and you can see it's lifted out just a little bit, and I'll come back with my plastic instrument and just work it out. Now this pin comes all the way out, so I'll just go ahead and do it and lift it out, and there it goes, and I'll set it off the side, and now we can separate the lower receiver from the upper receiver. Lower receiver I'm going to put down and lay right here, and the upper receiver basically contains the barrel and the bolt and bolt carrier. So I'll pull the bolt carrier back by grabbing hold of the charging handle and pull it straight back, and you can see here it comes. Pull it all the way back here like this. Now I'll grab hold of just the bolt carrier, and there comes the charging handle. And as I take the charging handle out, you'll notice that there are two ears here on the charging handle that correspond to slots that are inside of the upper receiver. And that's what keeps it in its channel that allows it to slide back and forth without coming all the way out. So I'll put this down now. First thing I like to do whenever I clean any firearm is to let the solvent start to work on the inside of the bore. And so what I'm going to do now is take my cleaning rod, put a small patch in here. If you're new to cleaning firearms, especially this .223 caliber, you've got to understand that this bore is very, very small in diameter. It's got to be a small patch, all right, because, again, it's a very small bore. If you use too big of a patch, it's going to be very hard to push through. What I like to do first is use strict bore solvent, okay, not the oil-based solvent, but just strictly a solvent. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to liberally apply this solvent to my patch. It's going to be a soaked patch somewhat, all right? And now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to push it into the bore, okay? And it takes a little bit of pressure, as you can see, once you get it started. And now I'm just going to let this go all the way through and basically coat the bore with solvent. All right, and I'm a believer that I don't like to pull a dirty patch through my barrel, so now I'm just going to go ahead and take that patch out and pull the rod out. And now I've got the inside of the bore somewhat coated with my solvent, and I'm going to stick the barrel on my table, just put it down on my table, and let that solvent work. And so let that sit for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then we'll move on to the next part of the gun that I'd like to clean, and I'll focus my attention here on the bolt carrier group and the bolt. And before I take this apart, I would like to inspect it. I'd like you to inspect yours as well, so you can see how it's supposed to look when it comes back together. You should do that to all your firearms. Before you take them apart, look at them closely to see what it's supposed to look like. And if you just go ahead and give yourself a chance to see, you'll see that this works back and forth, and this is the actual bolt itself. And these are the lugs of the bolt. And the extractor is right here. Notice how the extractor is on the right side because, of course, the spent casings extract or expel out the right side of the gun. All right, and if you look down here on the underside, you can see there's our firing pin. And if I go ahead and I put this down all the way like so, and I push my firing pin up, you'll notice inside of the bolt face, there is the firing pin. First, I'll just go ahead and remove the firing pin itself. And if you look here, there's a little firing pin retaining pin. I can reach in there with my plastic instrument just to get it started, and I'll pull it up as far as I can, and I'm just going to pull that straight out, and you can look at that, and it looks kind of like a little cotter pin, but it's a very important part that you don't pull those two pieces apart, okay? Just keep them as is and don't have to do a whole lot with that. Now I'm going to turn my bolt carrier upside down, and to remove the firing pin, just basically tap on it, and out it comes. And there's my firing pin itself. There it is. And now I've got to remove the actual bolt from the bolt carrier assembly. And to do so, I want to take this cam pin right here. It's called the bolt cam pin. I want to turn it just 45 degrees. Okay, and that's about it right there. And then we can lift it straight out. Okay, and out it comes. And that's that piece there. So I'll put that down. And now the actual bolt will remove itself with just a little bit of pressure. Out it comes. And there's the bolt carrier and This is the actual bolt itself. And there's one very important part here, and that is the extractor. It is what extracts rounds, spent casings, from your chamber. And if you look in here close, you'll see there's a little notch right here. That is the extractor, and that's what has to be kept free of debris and burnt residue so that it can grab hold of the actual casing, the rim of the casing, or the notch down at the bottom of it. All right, so now we're going to show you how to remove this extractor from the bolt itself. If you look at the bolt, you'll see that there is a pin right here. This is the extractor pin, and it holds or captures the extractor in this piece. And if we push on the extractor with our fingers, you'll see there's a little bit of play there, and it needs that play. There's a spring inside there. Now I'm going to push down to release the pressure on the pin, and then with my firing pin, just push that pin straight through, and you can see it starting to come through on the other side. And as it comes through there, I can now grab it with my fingers and pull it straight out. Here it comes. Out it goes. So I'll lay that down, and now the entire extractor will lift out, and I'm going to turn it upside down, and I suggest you do the same, and you'll see why here in just a moment. As we pull the extractor out, you notice there's a very important part here that plays a big part in the functioning and reliability of this gun, and that is this little spring right here, of which inside is a little rubber eraser type material. And this is what gives the extractor the spring tension it needs to be able to lift up as it accepts the casing and spring back down onto the notch and pull back and eject the shell. So it's very important that you do not disturb the relationship of these pieces, and you don't want to lose those because the gun will not function properly without these two small little pieces, that spring and or that rubber part. This is the part you want to make sure is clean, and there's several ways you can do this. Is you can basically just grab a paper towel that has a little bit of solvent on it and just run around and physically just wipe off all the residue one step at a time. And as you go, make sure you pay particular attention to the bolt face. You don't want to have any unburnt powder left in there. And now that we've got it wiped down, I can apply some of the cleaning oil product. It's a 3-in-1 product that lubricates, cleans, and prevents rust. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this right on here. And I'm going to grab a brush. And this is why you want to wear old clothes. And I'm going to brush it all around here, slowly but surely. I'm going to clean the lugs up here and make sure that it's completely clean. And this will remove any of the residue, as well as make sure that all the parts are lubricated, because remember, these are steel-on-steel parts, so they have to have a lubrication, a little bit of lubrication on them. Not too much, but they have to be lubricated to work and function properly. And so it's very important that they have a little bit of lubrication. And you can see here, once I go over it with my brush, I'll come back in and wipe off any of the excess oil. And once I've facilitated that, I'll show you another little secret here, which a lot of guys with who are used to cleaning 1911s know all about, because all the small rails are very hard to get into. Just lay a clean piece of cleaning material over top of the bolt face there. Get your brush and get in there and just kind of rub it around, because there's some areas in there that you're not going to be able to get with your fingers because it's so small. Now you can do it with a brush, or you can do it with your plastic instrument. Get in there and just scrape around and clean those edges and corners that you really can't get with your finger. And again, all I'm doing is just using my tool to get to places where my finger can't reach. Okay. Now, one other part to really look at and pay attention to is the extractor itself. And you'll notice there's a little notch. And the notch is the key area. You want to make sure that's clean. You can put your little plastic instrument in there and just kind of scrape it out. Get a brush, go in there and brush it out as well. And my brush already has a little bit of oil on it, so it's going to lubricate that part as I go, making sure not to disturb the spring over here. Come back with my cleaning towel, and voila, we have cleaned the extractor just that easily. The rest of these parts can actually just be wiped down. The cam pin here can be just basically wiped down. The pins themselves, firing pin, retaining pin, and the actual extractor pin can be just wiped off. And once we've done that, we're ready to apply some effort to the bolt carrier in itself. Basically, this part, indestructible as it is, you just want to wipe down the rails. You can go over it with a brush if you so desire. Make sure that it's clean right here in this front part, and then there's one spot here that really deserves particular attention, and that is the key right here, which will fit into the gas tube that's in the upper receiver. This is a very important spot to make sure it's clean, and there's two ways to do so. One, take a brush, and not a dry brush, but put a little bit of the cleaning oil on it if you so desire, and or just some solvent. And let's just work that 223 caliber brush right into it, and just turn it clockwise and push it in just about as far as you can, and then pull it straight out. And that's going to clean all the hard residue in there. And then take a pipe cleaner and basically feed it into the hole, and use the wire that's inside there to work your edges and to work off any of the excess oil. And that's basically how you clean that part right there. And you can also, they recommend in the owner's manual, both the GI owner's manual and the civilian manual, to place a small drop of your oil, just one drop in there, and kind of rub it around, let it run around, and that's going to help form a seal onto the gas tube that is in the upper receiver. So that's it, basically. This part is clean. Lightly oil is the key. Don't want to have a whole lot of oil there. Let's go ahead and reassemble now. First thing we're going to look at is we're going to put the bolt face back together. And to do so, I'm going to grab my extractor, and I'm going to grab my bolt and put it together just like so. Okay. There's only one way it can work. You can feel the spring tension. I'm going to grab the pin, and I'm going to place the pin right back into the hole as such. Now, this pin has to be squared up, as you can imagine, so you got to make sure it is fully seated. And that's basically it. So let me go ahead and put my bolt into the bolt carrier, and you'll notice again that the extractor is going to go on the right side. So they go in this relationship. This is the extractor. It's on the right side of the bolt. Stick it straight in, and it'll be a little sticky right here just because that's where the pressure starts to be applied with the spring that's inside of your extractor there. And now we want to line up our hole there, and we'll get our cam pin here, a bolt cam pin. Remember, it goes in like so first, straight in, and then we turn it so it doesn't come out. And that's the relationship, okay? And now we see that it does in fact function properly. Okay, now it's time for our firing pin. And the firing pin would go right into the firing pin hole here in the bolt carrier. And I'll just let it fall in. Okay, and we take our firing pin retaining pin. It only goes in on the one side here with a deeper hole in which to, and it fits in all the way just like that. Now we want to make sure that firing pin's not going to come out. Okay, so it's not. So the pin is doing its job, and the firing pin is captured inside of the bolt. And that's basically it. This bolt and bolt face are clean. The bolt carrier assembly is basically ready to be installed. Meanwhile, we've let the solvent work on our bore, and we're going to still let that work there. We're going to focus our attention onto the actual chamber area first. Remember, we have solvent inside the bore here. Now what I want to do is I want to work on the chamber. That's where the cartridge is seated before it is hit with the firing pin. And there's a specialized brush here that they have manufactured. It's called a chamber brush. And you can see that it has a thicker neck or a wider neck, and this is the basic size of the chamber. What you do not want to do is use a dry brush in your bore in your chamber, because even though these brushes are made of brass and wire, you could scratch your chamber and or your barrel. So liberally apply some of your cleaning oil, and I'll show you how this works. Come up in here into your chamber area, and it's going to be tight. Push it all the way in, okay, and then we're going to rotate it clockwise now, and you can hear it, and we're just going to clean it 4 or 5 revolutions, then I'm going to go ahead and pull it straight back out. All right. What we're doing there is we're facilitating the cleaning of the chamber area and the lugs that are inside that chamber area. We'll let that sit for just a second, and I'm going to take now a smaller pistol type cleaning rod, And I'm going to use a little bit of my cleaning solvent here, oil solvent, oil cleaning solution. Comes in many different types. I'm happy to use a clean board today. Break Free is another excellent product. Basically now, what we want to do is we want to get inside here, and you see that tube right there? That is your gas tube that corresponds to the tube that we cleaned earlier on the bolt key, okay? So we want now to go in here with this rod and just basically get in there and work our cleaning rod around that item. And that has to be clean. We do not want to bend that tube or rod there. We just want to get in there and clean in and around it. And that's all I'm trying to do. And while I'm in there, I can also clean the top of the receiver up and down, get some of this cleaning solution all around. And now I've got somewhat of a dirty patch, so I'm going to remove this one. And I used slightly larger of a patch than I would for the actual bore, because I want to have a little bit of leeway with that patch up into that area. And now I'm going to apply even a larger patch, and I'm going to just clean up the excess oil and solvent that it happens to be in there due to the cleaning process. So I'm going to get in here and just now get into my chamber, okay, and just let the dry brush or dry patch soak up some of that extra solvent down there and all the residue that is being created by the solvent. And that is basically all you have to do for the upper receiver. Chamber is a very important area in which to clean. And that's how you do it. Use the chamber brush, then use a dry patch with a little bit of your cleaning solvent on it just to clean up the rest of the unburnt residue. Now we can focus our attention on the rest of the bore. So I'm going to go ahead and get my standard long cleaning rod, feed another patch through here. And this time, remember the first time I went ahead and I put straight bore solvent. This time I'm going to use my oil solvent, okay, which is a mixture of oil and solvent. It cleans, lubricates all in one shot. Liberally apply that up into the bore and come all the way with one clean. And again, like I said, I don't like to bring these dirty patches back through, so I'm just going to take it off and put it down. Now you can run 6, 8, 10 patches through, whatever you desire. Many people I know also like to start the process off with a wire brush. My gun was not that dirty, so I didn't have to do that. You could start off with one wire brush, but make sure you don't run a dry brush through. And when you put a brush through, make sure you run it all the way through. You don't try to change positions inside the bore itself. You've got to run it all the way through, then run it all the way back. You could damage the inside of the barrel if you do so, okay? And make sure, again, that you put some kind of lubricant on the brush before you put it in there. And it's time to focus our attention on the lower receiver. And the lower receiver is absolutely one of the spots that really needs almost no attention whatsoever. If you observe in here, if you look in here, see if I can get some light for Dave to see, you'll see that there's basically no residue whatsoever. Everything looks to be clean. I can even take a clean cloth, stick it in there, rub it around a little bit, comes out with barely anything on it. And this is a gun I've fired thousands and thousands of times, and so this lower area really requires hardly any maintenance whatsoever. If you broke your gun apart and it happens to have the barrel, or excuse me, the hammer cocked like so, make sure that when you drop the hammer, you capture it with your finger so it doesn't slam into the receiver. Understanding that the receivers are made of aluminum, the hammer's made of steel. If you bang that hammer onto the aluminum receiver several times, it's going to start to damage your frame. So if it's down like that and you want to get access to that area, catch it with your finger, let it down nice and gently, and now you can work inside there. And like I said, chances are you're really not going to have to clean that a whole lot. Just oil it lightly. Oil the springs lightly if you have to. Mine appear to be nicely lubricated. I can see a little shiny gloss of oil on them, so there's no need for me to do anything here. I'll just go ahead and cosmetically clean it up, make sure everything looks good. Clean the hammer off a little bit, make sure the hammer face is clean. And we're in there. And we're going to move and just do one last bit of attention to the upper receiver. We're going to kind of just look at it, grab a nice clean cloth, and get in there with our elbow grease and clean off the ejection port. Make sure it's nice. Clean off all the inner workings here. And like I said, this area, once you got your patches through it a bunch of times, really don't need a whole bunch. I can actually stick my whole cleaning cloth in there, take a soft instrument, run it up and down, just to wipe up any of the excess residue and or oil. And voila, I've got now basically a clean gun. So let's go ahead and put it back together. The idea would be to attach our upper and lower half, just like so. And to do so, I'm going to use my pin. Okay, and I'll come in from this side. I know that's going to be hard for you to see at home there, but all you've got to do is just make sure everything's lined up. Come around here and show you basically what I'm talking about. Make sure that we get them lined up so we can sit it flush. And here we go. And that sounds good because you know it's seated. Turn it on the other side. Take your screw. Tighten it down with a screwdriver. And you don't have to hammer this down too tight because it does seat itself so deeply. Just want to make sure that you tighten it just to the point of where it's snug. All right, if you're so inclined, you could put a little drop of red Loctite there. And finally, now I'm going to take my charging handle, going to seat it up in the top here. Oops, get it in there. Okay, you can see how it works itself in and out. Okay, take my bolt carrier, put it in just like so. Okay, and now I'll just push them together. You can see it seats itself. I will tell you from my experimentation, the gun goes together a lot better if you do have it cocked. Okay, so I'll stick it down like this, and let's get that pin out of the way. There it is. And push the pin in. You always want to test it a couple times, make sure everything sounds good, feels good. If there's any loose parts inside, now's the time to find out. Sounds good, pull the trigger, looks good. Now just take a clean cloth and cosmetically wipe up any of the excess oil that you had from the very beginning, and you now have a clean AR-15 rifle. Good luck to you in your cleaning and safe shooting.